Welcome back everyone to RoxomTV. I'm your host Jenny. Today we are continuing our special Consensus Week edition here in Hong Kong, and where we are bringing you live conversations with real builders and founders, the people actually shipping products, to understand where the market could be heading from an insider's perspective. So our first guest today is Diego, as the CEO of RootstockLabs. So Diego has been building in Bitcoin since the early days and is one of the key voices behind bringing smart contracts and real-world use cases to Bitcoin. We'll be talking about Bitcoin beyond just store of value, root adoption in emerging markets, and how builders are thinking about the next phase of this cycle. So Diego, it's great to have you.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for joining RoxomTV. And since this is your first time here in RoxomTV, as a first show here, so why don't we start with a little bit background of yourself? Because you have been in Bitcoin for a very long time. Like, walk us through your journey. How did you get started?
Well, I started in Bitcoin in 2000. Well, I got in touch with Bitcoin in 2011, but I really didn't get it. I think many of us have the same experience where, the first time you meet Bitcoin, you don't understand it. And back in 2012, a friend of mine, Wences Casares, brought me back into Bitcoin. And after experience we had, we had capital controls in Argentina. It was impossible to get money in and out, or very difficult to get money in and out of the country. And he was in Silicon Valley. I was in Buenos Aires. We did a transaction where he sent me like 5,000 Bitcoins. It was like $50,000 back in the day. And we didn't have to ask permission from anybody. And when that happened, I realized Bitcoin was going to be a new revolution in how finance worked. So because I was part of the early days of the .com era, also with Wences, I had this feeling of how, when you see a technology that was going to change the world. So I decided to devote myself in full to Bitcoin. First, trying to understand who was involved in Bitcoin, like, meeting in cafes with strangers to sell and buy Bitcoin, to understand who was involved. And then in 2013, together with Rodolfo Andrañez and Franco Amati, we started creating the Bitcoin community in Argentina, and then helping create the Bitcoin communities around Latin America. So those were my early days,
Yeah, I mean, usually when Bitcoin, when people first come across Bitcoin, they the first thing is use cases, is remittance. Like for the example that you just brought out, maybe just to send money around. Like then you soon realize this is a really amazing use case. It's so much better than the archaic systems that we have, the monetary systems that we're still using for some reason. So after that, you are building an infrastructure called Rootstock. Like, how did you push from community building into creating infrastructure like Rootstock?
Well, in the first 2 years, I was understanding Bitcoin to understand where I wanted to apply myself. And, as part of the community building, we also created La BitConf, the longest running Bitcoin conference in the world that has 10,000 people every year. I started exploring with people from the Bitcoin Argentina NGO how we could use Bitcoin to serve the people excluded from the financial system. And then we realized there were a lot of shortcomings that need to be, targeted if we wanted Bitcoin to serve everybody. Because Bitcoin itself, the layer one of Bitcoin, is designed for maximum security. Therefore, it sacrifices functionality and sacrifices scalability. So it works perfectly, is the best decentralized network, blockchain network for storing value. But if you want to start having, like, for example, contracts, economic contracts among people, you want to do payments, you need to extend Bitcoin in order to have those capabilities. So when I realized, like, what were the missing pieces in order to make Bitcoin work for everybody, I started chasing this idea of how to extend Bitcoin. At the end of 2014, also, Blockstream released the sidechain white paper that, gave a hint of how how that could be done, or a conceptual model to do that, to extend Bitcoin. And earlier before that, in October, I met with Nick Sau, and we were discussing, how it was a pity that Ethereum decided to be, created as a separate network, as a new network, and was not using all the solid foundations that Bitcoin had already to extend. And that led to a conversation with Sergio Lerner, that is co-founder of Rootstock and our chief scientist, where we started discussing how to do that, how to bring smart contract capabilities into Bitcoin, how to turn Bitcoin into a full financial system and not only into a store of value.
And I personally find Rootstock very special because it's the most battle tested. Like it has been live since 2018, and so far it has been 100% uptime. So that is something I find it very impressive. But when it comes to like Bitcoin layer twos, like there are different side chains. So is Rootstock just a layer two, or how do you feed the infrastructure?
Well, I think layer two is just, as I said, more of a geographical definition. It's like it's the layer that sits on top of layer one, that is the Bitcoin main chain. And I think I like to talk more about the functionalities different networks can offer, no? Because you have Lightning that conceptually is also a layer two to Bitcoin, is a second layer on top of Bitcoin, but offers payment capabilities. And in the case of Rootstock, what Rootstock brought is what I call conceptually economic coordination. That is the ability of two parties, whether it's individuals or companies, to set agreements, to set contracts among them in a decentralized way, but also using this 100% uptime that you were mentioning to make sure that you can enforce those contracts, those agreements over time. No, so what Rootstock brings is the capability of doing economic coordination, and uses, unlike any other sidechain or layer two in existence, uses the hashing power of Bitcoin to protect this second layer. That's very unique to Rootstock, because 80% of the hashing power of Bitcoin is protecting both Bitcoin and Rootstock at the moment. So you have all the capabilities of Ethereum. You have, because Rootstock is fully EVM compatible, with the security of Bitcoin, and Bitcoin as the core asset in the network. So it's like bringing the best of Ethereum and Bitcoin in one, under one roof. No?
Yes, I like that. So, in other words, Rootstock is the whole infrastructure that will incorporate Bitcoin nature, of course, incorporate like Bitcoin payments, so BTC-Fi, and also smart contracts nature. So, one thing you always mention is Bitcoin is beyond just store of value, so it's beyond just digital gold. Like, why do you say this? Like, what is your perspective on that?
Well, I think Bitcoin is two things: is the asset, which has proven to be, the future digital gold, and the store of value, the unique, the only scarce asset in the world, like truly scarce asset in the world. And I think scarcity, it's something that they were in the fiat world that we have been living for the last 50 years. The elasticity of money has created a lot of distortions and problems that our societies are facing. So having that, reference, having a money that is really scarce, or an asset that is really scarce like Bitcoin, is fundamental to overcome the crisis we have ahead of us as a society. But if we only provide like store of value from the Bitcoin perspective, we are not using the full potential of Bitcoin, because Bitcoin is also the safest decentralized settlement network and data availability system. So what we are aiming to do with Rootstock is go beyond store of value and make Bitcoin work for everybody. And that means everybody. It goes like helping corporations. That's what we are focusing now, like providing corporations with tools so they can do their Bitcoin treasury management in the safest way possible, where counterparty risk is replaced by protocol risk and platform risk. And as you said, Rootstock is the longest running layer 2 to Bitcoin. has been running for 8 years, 100% uptime, no hacks. So you are like inheriting the security of Rootstock in the use of the DeFi products that we are building on top of we using the Rootstock ecosystem. So then you have yield on Bitcoin, then you have lending capability, so you can use your Bitcoins as collateral to get short-term liquidity, and that's key for the companies building their Bitcoin treasury. And this is also tools that are available. Those are tools that are available also for the regular people. So people like that wants to use these protocols. Those protocols are accessible directly on the Rootstock network. So that's what we are doing. Is like creating the tools. So the 260 billion of capital in Bitcoin in the institutional hands are not only a store of value and idle, but also they become a tool for productivity, and they can unlock the full potential of that value. And on the network, that's also available for individuals, for small companies. So that's a vision where Rootstock enables like Bitcoin to become a financial tool or the financial infrastructure of the future that will serve any human being.
Yes, I like that. So far I'm getting that, okay, Rootstock is a very comprehensive ecosystem. It has like all sort of elements inside the ecosystem. And another term you like to discuss is economic coordination layer. What do you mean by that in simple terms? Maybe could you explain to me in a technical side, but most even non-tech savvy person would understand?
I think economic coordination is what we do on daily basis. No, it can be like a payment is an economic coordination. It's like I get goods or services, and it's implicit that I will pay for those goods and services. Some, depending on the amount of money and the time frames our agreements go, will formalize those agreements or not. No, in a simple transaction, there's no need to formalize the agreement because basically the transaction is done in more or less an atomic fashion. It's like I get the products, I pay, that's it. No, it's the transaction is that economic coordination is done instantly. But what happens when I get a loan? When I leave something as collateral, to get a loan, then the terms of the loans might go for a few months, a year. And it's important, if you do this in the traditional model, you use legal contracts, you use the justice system, you use the police enforcement to make sure that those contracts will be honored. In the case of Rootstock, all that is done by the network. No, so that's where the network becomes an economic coordination layer, is where we can set the agreements, economic agreements, and the main development, if you want, is that the network can enforce the economic consequences of these contracts, because the network is also hosting the value and the assets. So that's why I talk that the first layer on top of Bitcoin, once you have layer one, that is a store of value, the following very important layer is economic coordination, is how we manage contracts among parties that have economic value at stake. And then the following layer, the layer 3 that we are working, that is what we call Rootstock Pay, is the layer 3 that is the payment or the medium of exchange layer. And then when you have all those layers secured by the same Bitcoin miners, using Bitcoin as the foundations, as the economic foundations, as Bitcoin the asset, as economic foundations, then you have what I think will be the future of the financial system of the world, because you have a system that doesn't depend on any nation state to operate, that has maximum security, that has an asset that is absolutely scarce at its foundations, but can have representations of the fiat currencies of the world. It can have representations of commodities. Anything that is valuable can be tokenized and issued there. But then you have the reference point and the liquidity of Bitcoin underneath to make, to give security to that. So that's the vision of like why Rootstock is this economic coordination layer on top of Bitcoin.
Yeah, so basically, Rootstock is something that is completely programmable. You could twist that a little bit based on your liking. So I kind of want to shift gears a little bit towards the Bitcoin adoption in Latin America right now, because like Latin America has some of the highest Bitcoin adoption or crypto adoption, maybe stablecoins adoption rates in the whole world. I wonder, like, speaking from a like the loco in Latin America, like what is driving this compared to maybe more speculative markets out there?
I think Latin America is very special because it has, on one side, we have suffered all type of economic crisis you can imagine, from hyperinflation, bail-ins. In 2001 in Argentina, we got all the funds of people in the banks confiscated, and when they went out of the banks, they were worth 1/4 of the original value in dollar terms. So that level of, you know, um, I would say, destruction of value for society and hyperinflation, corruption, all those things led the population to be always constantly aware and hedging against these things, against government corruption, against mismanagement of the macroeconomics. And so that's one thing, that awareness of how macroeconomics impact your life, that I think in Latin America we're present for many decades. But I think now the world is starting to be more aware of the consequences of this. So I don't think this is only something restricted to Latin America, but Latin America has that awareness earlier on. On the other side, Latin America has been an early adopter, and in particular Argentina, where we started the first communities, has been an early adopter of technology. Like some of the earliest adopters of social networks, internet, and different technologies. So when you have the crossroads of a population that is very aware of how macroeconomics impact their lives, that is always hedging against different crises, economic crisis, and that is like very technology friendly, you have the perfect environment for crypto adoption. On top of that, we were one of the earliest to create big communities, and that those were the communities I started co-creating with my co-founders in 2013, and then the communities in the rest of Latin America. And I think it's the combination of all that makes crypto adoption in Latin America one of the leading adoptions in the world.
Yeah, you mentioned some of the most popular reasons why Latin America have a much higher crypto adoption rate or Bitcoin adoption rate. The core problem maybe is inflation or currency devaluation. But like for your own perspective, like what about the more developed regions out there? Like what are the core reasons that you could like potentially see? Okay, maybe developed nations, developed regions need to use Bitcoin as well.
Yeah, I think it's each region will adopt. Again, I think the tools we are building in Rootstock make total sense in emerging markets or less developed nations, because the local banking systems and financial systems are like way behind, and they are not widely adopted. So they're like having stable assets backed by Bitcoin, like we have in Rootstock, then having lending capabilities, payment solutions, all that makes like more efficient remittance systems. That makes sense, and is why I think in Latin America, in Africa, we are seeing the earliest adoption of what we are building in Rootstock. But when you go to the first world, then is Bitcoin the asset, the thing that we see more demand. And that's where the other products, the products we are building for the treasury management for companies, make more sense. It's like how I can incorporate Bitcoin into my treasury in a scenario where we have instability around the globe and it's not clear. It's like you have liquidity crunches like the one we had recently that created the collapse of Bitcoin price and the gold. But all in all, the thesis of Bitcoin of having a truly scarce asset, like it's holding. So regardless that we might have like short-term crisis or in the long term, there's very little safe harbors in the economic system. So I see more and more, if you go to Asia or here in Hong Kong, I see more and more demand and interest in seeing how they can use Bitcoin and also integrate it with their daily needs in the corporations, in the hedge funds, in the family offices. So I think we are seeing that trend where the in the first world the traditional financial system is like bridging over into Bitcoin because they see it as a tool to navigate the turmoil that we are having in the global economy these days.
Yeah, amazing. Going back to a little bit about what you just said. So, developed regions, maybe they are, you spotted a trend that they're trying to look for ways to use that Bitcoin. So, does it, like, when it comes to BTC Fi adoption, does it mean maybe BTC Fi adoption might be more popular in regions like Asia, or you see, okay, maybe adoption rate in Latin America will be just as high as well?
I think the tools, when you look down there, these are not like pretty fancy tools that are like, the tools are the same across the world. They will be used. It's like what you have is different positionings, no, depending if it's a corporation, an institution, or an individual. But the tools are a little bit of the same, and I think it's like we are entering into that phase where Bitcoin is being integrated in the traditional financial system. It's no longer like a separate asset. Is one more of the tools that the traditional financial system is using. But unlike the traditional financial tools, Bitcoin is also accessible for the whole population. And I think that's the interesting thing. It's like you have a tool that can be used by corporations, but also can be used by individuals in a direct way. And in Rootstock in particular, what we developed last year was the Rootstock institutional solution or offering. That is basically, we created a compliance layer on top of these BTC Fi, decentralized protocols, because what we realize is, like, for traditional institutions, that's a big change between an individual going to the protocols and an institution going to the protocols. For the institutions, it's very hard to go directly to the protocols and interact because their operational frameworks are not adapted to that. So what we realize is, like, we need to bridge the gap until, using, well, the DeFi regulation is more clear. We have the Clarity Act coming in the US. So until the DeFi regulation is more clear, we need to create like an interface that is compliant and that speaks the language that institutions speak. So I think it's like the best of both worlds. Is a hybrid model where we take the compliance models, the traditional compliance models and regulatory frameworks, and then we operate on the background with truly decentralized systems. So I think BTC Fi will be distributed with these hybrid vehicles to the traditional financial system, to the corporations, to the financial institutions, and will be available directly via protocols to the individuals. And I think that's how we see this developing over the next years.
So, based on what you just said, like, would you say for BTC Fi to go on a next level, like getting more adopted by regular people, would you say is the regulatory challenge or more like a technical challenge?
It's more of an implementation. It's like, as I said, it's creating these hybrid models where we use the best. I mean, BTC Fi, the value of BTC Fi is we are replacing counterparty risk for protocol risk. And the interesting thing about protocol risk is, like, protocols, as they operate for more and more years, they get hardened. So they are safer. And, as they have more capital at stake, because BTC Fi operates in open source models where everything is available, the networks are open. So if they are not hacked, it's because it's not possible to hack them, not because they didn't try, no? Because you have that constant incentive. So over the years, a BTC Fi, a protocol, becomes safer and safer. With counterparty risk is a little bit of the opposite. It's like you have, in the factories, you have that countdown saying, okay, these many days without incidents. That's a little bit of how it works when you have counterparty risk. It's like, okay, that you didn't have incidents for many days or months, actually is not a good thing. It's the contrary. It's like you're waiting for that problem to happen. But with protocols, you can have things that were not possible with counterparties, no? And that's the main thing. It's like before we have Bitcoin decentralized blockchain model and proof of work and everything, it was not possible to have 100% uptime, for example. You could get to 99.7%, but you could not get to 100% uptime. And with this new model, this new operational model, we can get to 100% security. We can get to 100% uptime. And that's the disruption in the traditional financial system. So our thesis is like, as these systems we are creating and packaging in a layer, that is compliant, that fulfills the need of institutions, as it grows, it will basically capture, a big portion of the store of value of Bitcoin that needs to be active and create utility. So our thesis was always like 3 to 20% of the value in Bitcoin will move to the DeFi layer to get loans, to get yield, to have utility, extra utility on top of store of value.
Yeah, I am very bullish on the whole BTC because personally I own Bitcoin, and if I want to purchase some stuff or maybe want to I don't know, pay my rent, I don't necessarily want to sell my Bitcoin to do that. So
That's correct.
that's why I'm very bullish on the whole BTC Fi. So do you think it's going to be more popular in emerging markets, or maybe developed nations, or basically anyone in the world who hold BTC would want to use BTC Fi?
I think it will be globally adopted. As I said, the focus might be different, but what you were mentioning, I'm building my house, basically doing exactly that. Is I'm putting my bitcoins as collateral in Tropicus, one of the Rootstock protocols, and getting loans in dollars that I used to pay for the building of my house. So what you mentioned is exactly what happens to any Bitcoiner. It's like you don't want to sell your Bitcoins. What you want is like, but at the same time, you want to, develop your quality of living today, not wait 20 years or forever, So these tools also, in a way, connect the needs of the present with the needs of the future. So they bring the best of the two things. No, it's like having low time preference, but also living your life today and developing in the present. No? And I think the tools, again, for me, is the same tools. The approach will be different. Maybe in the first world, where you have big institutions, we'll see more institutional adoption. In the emerging markets, you will see more like grassroots adoption. That's what we are seeing. But all in all, I think the tools will be very similar, and the difference is like institutions require a certain environment to operate. No, so they have certain constraints in terms of KYC compliance, things that individuals are less sensitive to.
Amazing. So, is there any last piece of advice you could offer to other builders out there working on BTC, or maybe in stablecoins, or in crypto in general, especially during a volatile time like this? Like, you are the best person to talk to because you have been building amazing things around Bitcoin. So, is there any advice you could offer to other people to build?
I think like what I'm going to say is known. It's like you always, if you're an entrepreneur and you're building things, you need to understand who you're servicing and what is the utility you are providing. The beauty is that within the Rootstock ecosystem, we have a lot of tools, and because it's a composable ecosystem, so you can take money on chain, the stable asset backed by Bitcoin, and then you can use it without your application. You can take the Tropicus system and integrate it into your application. For example, recently we have a donation platform called Geyser, and they had a problem that they wanted to implement the system where the donations are given to the projects only if the certain mark is reached. So they need to have like temporary custody until the target donation levels were met, or give the money back to donors. And doing that by themselves in a custodial way was exposing them to a lot of regulatory and compliance problems. but by using smart contracts, they could avoid that. And now they are operating in the Rootstock ecosystem with smart contracts. They realize, okay, because Geyser is a Bitcoin-only donation system, but then they can say, okay, now we can instantly convert the Bitcoins to dollar using the money on chain protocol when people withdraw. So the beauty is like we have a beautiful ecosystem in Rootstock. So you can uh, use the existing tools to improve whatever you are building. So I think that's my advice is like first understand who you are serving, what is the utility you are bringing, and try to build your solutions with this composable mindset, not trying to build everything from scratch, but composing the different capabilities that the ecosystem has.
Amazing. I like that. So, for our viewers out there who want to know more about the latest updates of Rootstock, or maybe just to get your personal takes, where's the best way to reach out to you?
I mean, to X is the I was going to say Twitter. I'm one of the earlier users, so it's
I call it Twitter all the time.
yes. My handle is Dieguito, like little Diego, Dieguito. So you can find me there, and Rootstock.io is the website of Rootstock, where you can find all the information on the ecosystem, whether you're a builder or the Rootstock institutional, if you are a company or willing to do your Bitcoin treasury management. And yeah, then we have the Rootstock Collective as well, a DAO, where all the builders gather together and new proposals are discussed. It's like the governance part. So yeah, those are the best places to go.
Amazing. So huge thanks to Diago once again for sharing his insights on Bitcoin, real world adoption, and where the space is heading from a builder's point of view. So we'll take a short break for now, and when we come back, we'll be joined by the CBDO of GoMining, who will break down what's really happening inside Bitcoin mining, how institutions are approaching it, and where mining, yield, and infrastructure are going next. So do stick with us. We'll be right back here on RoxomTV.
Security matters. Zappo Bank, the only way to bank your Bitcoin. Apply now at zappobank.com.
All right, guys, welcome back to RoxomTV. And thanks for sticking around with us after the break. Joining me now is Jeremy from GoMining. We're going to dive into what's really happening behind the scenes in Bitcoin mining, from how miners are adapting in this market to how yield, infrastructure, and institutional interests are reshaping the space. So, Jeremy, it's great to have you on the show.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, since this is your first time here on Roxom TV Hong Kong, why don't we start with a little background of yourself? So walk us through your journey. How did you get into Bitcoin mining?
So my background is in real estate development, spent my entire career in and around real estate. But in 2017, I've always had a love for tech on the outside of real estate. And when I saw the big bull run that happened in 2017, I said, okay, I need to look into Bitcoin. I need to look into cryptocurrency. What is this new up and coming asset class? And once I realized what Bitcoin actually is, of course, I fell in love immediately and wanted to get involved. And as I looked at the best ways to get involved in the ecosystem, mining stood out to me easily as being a real estate developer. Developing data centers and mining Bitcoin, in essence, is a yield generating business, which is very closely connected to real estate development. And I dove headfirst back in 2017 and been involved ever since. From 2017 through 2020, I built a pretty large Bitcoin mining business, helping miners move over into the US. A lot of foreign miners were leaving China and leaving other locations and wanted to set up shop in the United States. So we built that business up to over 100 million of ARR, had a successful exit of that business back in 2020. And then from there, I was consulting many different Bitcoin miners and crypto companies until I joined GoMining a few years ago to build out their business development division.
Yeah, that was a very experienced journey for sure, how you got from real estate to Bitcoin mining. So let's shift gear and talk about gold mining for now, because gold mining, it has been scaling in a really rapid pace ever since 2021. So what were the key milestones that took it from mining into basically a full Bitcoin ecosystem?
So yeah, we came on the map by allowing anybody in the world the ability to mine Bitcoin pretty much with a push of a button. Bitcoin mining has become, over the years, an industrial scale business only. It's very difficult now to self mine. It's very difficult to roll out your own data center to mine Bitcoin. And we saw an opportunity there that there are still many people in the world that want to be able to mine Bitcoin but can't. So what we've done is we've tokenize the mining power that we have in our data centers into a digital format, and we sell access to that through digital miners. Now, this grew the business to where it is today. We currently have over 13 exahash of power under capacity. We're a large industrial scale mining operator. And through that, we became very good at bringing Web 2 users into Web 3. And we think, okay, so if we were good at doing that, what's the next step with allowing users to be a part of what we're building on Bitcoin and bringing mass adoption to the world? So we've now transitioned into being not only that go-to place for retail Bitcoin mining, but also a way where you can now use Bitcoin every day, spend your Bitcoin, earn on your Bitcoin, and be a part of a great community that is a big believer in Bitcoin long term.
Yeah, so what I notice is that a lot of people have their Bitcoin, but they don't want to spend it. So let's talk about your recent survey, because what you showing was that most Bitcoin holders rarely spend a BTC. Is that like entirely healthy for the Bitcoin market? Because like ultimately Bitcoin is supposed to be a payment based on Satoshi Nakamoto, right?
Exactly. So if we go back to the white paper and we go back to what Satoshi envisioned Bitcoin as being, he envisioned it as being peer-to-peer cash. Of course, part of that is the store of value narrative, and we have that at this point. But we have to transition now into also becoming a medium of exchange for Bitcoin to be viable long term. And this, as a Bitcoin miner, this is very important to us. Um, what we saw with the survey is that yes, the majority of people are still hodling and not wanting to sell their Bitcoin or use their Bitcoin, but that is slowly starting to shift. Those same people that are not using Bitcoin see that they want to start be able to use it. And they just don't know what the best way to do so. There's very difficult ways right now to be able to use Bitcoin every single day to pay for things, or difficult ways to be able to earn yield on your Bitcoin. Users are there and they want to have the ability to do so. They just don't know how.
Yeah, so what I notice is that when it comes to BTC Fi, of course, like people have the BTC they want to spend, but they don't necessarily want to sell. But the education on the whole BTC Fi, like the whole usage, is still really low. Like if I ask a general public to name maybe a top three BTC Fi projects, most of them probably wouldn't be able to do it. So what can we do right now to basically make the adoption to caught up with the demand?
So BTC Fi is still very new. Ethereum is still ahead of us with building out DeFi protocols and DeFi solutions. I think we're just looking at it a little bit wrong for mass adoption of BTC Fi use cases. If we're going to bring in the masses, we have to build products where the users that are using different type of BTC-Fi protocols or applications don't even know that they're using those applications. All of us that have been in the space for many, many years, we have wallets, we are transacting directly with blockchains. The majority of the world's not going to do that. So we have to build applications that make it extremely simple for anybody to be able to produce yield on Bitcoin, and then let those companies that are building those applications with a great UX do all of the actual tech work in the background.
Yeah, so one, I find it really interesting, the product from GoMining is, of course, like tokenized hash rate. That would mean basically any individuals who are interested to have exposure in Bitcoin mining would have the now have the chance to do it. So for GoMining, you guys don't just focus on retails, but also in institutions. So Bitcoin mining is becoming more like infrastructure-like. Like how is gold mining positioning itself for a more institutional adoption through products, maybe like tokenized hash rate or maybe alpha blocks?
So yes, we rolled out last year our new direction, which is GoMining Institutional, and our first product is the GoMining Alpha Blocks Fund. In essence, this is allowing institutional investors and giving them access to yield that's being produced by Bitcoin mining. So as we discussed at the beginning, Bitcoin mining in general is just a yield generating business, and institutions love cash flow. They don't often invest in assets and speculate on the price going up over time. They invest in businesses, they invest in cash flow, and Bitcoin mining is still an extremely profitable business at producing yield. It's just denominated in Bitcoin. If we look at how institutions that are true believers in Bitcoin long term, they are starting now to look at how can I increase my position in Bitcoin, or what's the best way to allocate to Bitcoin. Bitcoin mining is also a great option with this because they can bring down their cost basis over time by mining Bitcoin instead of just purchasing Bitcoin and holding it on their balance sheet.
Yeah, speaking of like mining, you talk about visualized mining using NFTs backed by real hash rate. Like, what exactly does that mean, and how does that work in practice?
So this is our main product. This is what we call the digital miners. It is NFT technology, but we've moved away from using the word NFT after the 2021 2022 NFT boom, where everybody thinks an NFT is just a JPEG. But those in the space understand that NFT is non-fungible token. It's the underlying technology that is being used. Um, in essence, when you're purchasing a digital miner or an NFT, you're purchasing a certain amount of mining power that is being produced in our data centers. So if you understand anything about Bitcoin mining, you're talking about hash rate, and you're talking about a certain amount of efficiency of that hash rate. No different than what you have with physical Bitcoin mining and ASIC mining machines. When you buy an ASIC mining machine, you're buying a certain amount of terahash at a certain efficiency. We've mimicked that in the digital way, where when you come in and you mint a new digital miner, you decide how much terahash you want to purchase at what efficiency. And now, based on that number and based on the current algorithm of Bitcoin today, you will get the Bitcoin that is being mined with that power.
Yeah, that sounds very interesting. And you guys have other products like Simple Earn, Mine Wars, or even the Epic X GoMining Watch. So you guys blend yield, gaming, and collectibles, everything together. So I wonder, like, how do these actually help onboard new users beyond just focusing on that, earning that Bitcoin alone?
Yeah, so if we look at mining first and foremost, it's kind of one of those things where you can set it and forget it, especially through Go Mining, where you come in and you purchase a digital miner, it's mining for you every single day. You don't have to do anything. Everything's being taken care of in the background. With the addition of Miner Wars, this is a way where you can be a part of the mining community and you can actually compete against other clans. So instead of in Bitcoin mining, you have single mining and then you have pool mining. And majority of all miners in the world are mining through some type of pool, accumulating hash rate to be able to level out the block rewards and how you're getting paid. We've kind of mimicked that, but changed it into where you're mining as a clan, and then you compete against other clans to win extra rewards. This just makes Bitcoin mining much more fun and gamified for the users that are using the application. As we expand into other products such as Simple Earn and our card program and so forth, this is now allowing users to take that Bitcoin that they've mined and now either produce a yield on that Bitcoin or start to use that Bitcoin in real life. And this is that next step where we move into pushing Bitcoin into being that true medium of exchange.
Yeah, so far we have talked about like from a like maybe miners investor perspective or users perspective. Let's shift gear a little bit and talk about the merchant or maybe the payment, because like merchant adoption is so far still a bottleneck. From your perspective, what needs to change for Bitcoin payments to go mainstream, and where is it already working?
So where it's working now is there are different types of crypto cards out there, similar to what we have at Go Mining, where you can top up a card with cryptocurrency. It's a Visa card, and then you can use that pretty much anywhere in the world to make a purchase. This is using the traditional financial rails that have already been built. We need to shift over into using Bitcoin rails in the future. And this is being built out, but it's still going to take a lot of education, and it's going to get merchants on board to integrate the ability to accept Bitcoin into the POS systems. I don't think this is going to be a very difficult thing to do because most POS systems now are very digital. They can accept Apple Pay, they can accept all the digital formats. It's more about just integrating in a way where every merchant in the world can accept any asset that they want. This could be Bitcoin, this could be other cryptocurrencies, and the exchange of that into their own currency just happens instantly. They don't even know what currency is being used for payment. They just know what they're accepting, and they don't have to worry about the tax implications. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. That's all taken care of beforehand. There's a lot of solutions being built out there. Us at GoMining, we're also working on a solution that we're going to be launching this year, where it's going to make it much easier to use Bitcoin in real life. This is where the builders come in, and we have to continue to push that. But it's also part of the adoption. When the demand is there and it's growing, the merchants will just want to add that in because they're not going to want to lose out on those sales.
Yeah, so from what you just presented to me, like the whole payments, it could be very frictionless already. It's just like maybe not enough people are using it. So like if there are more users trying to pay in Bitcoin, the merchants will catch up. So in this kind of world, would you say maybe governments is more like blocking the way? Maybe regulations is the major hurdle right now?
Uh, it's region to region, and there's certain areas where they're going to crack down more and more for those everyday solutions. But this is where you create other products where if you can't pay in Bitcoin, okay, now you're paying through a Visa card, and whoever's accepting that payment looks at it no different than if you had a bank card. And there will be more solutions that grow from there. I don't think the regulatory environment is really that big of an issue. It's always going to be an issue with cryptocurrency and with Bitcoin, but we've moved beyond, especially in the Bitcoin side, we've moved beyond in most areas of the world where they they are more or less against Bitcoin adoption. Now it's like, okay, we've got beyond the the level of Bitcoin becoming a true institutional asset. Now it's like, okay, how can we integrate this into the actual financial infrastructure?
Yeah, so I do want to move on and to look at zoom out and look at the future outlook a little bit because like with halvings right now, so Bitcoin halvings, of course, the reward going to cut in half, and then AI competing with energy and institutional inflows. I wonder what advice you could give to newcomers joining or entering the Bitcoin minings in order just Bitcoin ecosystem in general.
This is a very great and important point. And if we look at where we've come in the last few years with Bitcoin, with the approval of the ETFs in the US, Bitcoin is now truly became, we've been waiting for this for years, truly became an institutional asset. And the demand is there. The demand is growing. Um, in most time, the demand for even just the ETFs in the US is 3 times higher than the new supply coming in the market through mining. So this is just the first part of what this adoption and institutional adoption is starting to happen right now. Um, in general, institutions don't move very fast, and we understand that as we move forward over time, more and more institutions are going to start to allocate to Bitcoin. They're going to add Bitcoin to the balance sheet. This is governments as well. There's only a few governments right now that are holding Bitcoin, and we see that expanding over the next 5-10 years. But with that, and that increased demand with real capital, not retail, you have Bitcoin miners that are finding it more and more difficult to roll out capacity, to procure cheap power. Um, yes, margins are compressing over time, which happens with any business that matures, but Bitcoin mining is still an extremely profitable yield generating business. And what we believe is that as this institutional demand continues to increase, and the network will not be able to continue to grow exponentially as it's done over the last 5 years, proportionate to that growth of Bitcoin as an actual institutional asset, that there's a real opportunity there for Bitcoin miners to continue to outperform and lower their cost basis of acquiring Bitcoin over just purchasing Bitcoin and holding it on the balance sheet. So I'm very bullish on Bitcoin mining over the next 10, 15 years as being the picks and shovels behind Bitcoin and its global adoption.
Yeah, I also noticed that you are one of the speaker at Consensus Hong Kong. So for those of you who are watching this channel, basically the studios in Hong Kong. So we are what's happening in Hong Kong right now is that Consensus Week. So after talking to all the institutions, all the conversations that you had during this week, what basically stood out to you the most? Maybe like, okay, something that I find, okay, this is a good feedback we could take from like maybe during Consensus Hong Kong Week.
So yeah, there was many different great discussions with institutions, especially here in Hong Kong. And I was very pleasantly surprised that a lot of institutions that a few years ago we had discussions with had no desire at all to get involved in Bitcoin, cryptocurrency, and Bitcoin mining are now actively reaching out and wanting to have the conversations of how can they integrate Bitcoin and Bitcoin mining opportunities into their portfolio, and how can they offer that to their investors. It's a major shift. It's great. It's super exciting. Um, and what we're seeing also is that with the also the onset of digital asset treasuries, more of them holding Bitcoin on their balance sheets. We're also having discussions with many of them, especially here also in Asia, that how can they now expand into mining Bitcoin so that they can continue to lower that cost basis of how they can acquire Bitcoin and put it on their balance sheet. So all positive talks, and it seems like Hong Kong is almost even ahead of a lot of other places that we've been in that type of adoption.
That is truly amazing to hear that, especially coming from a professional. But unfortunately, that's all the time we have got for this segment. Huge thanks to Jeremy once again for joining us and sharing those insights from inside gold mining. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll shift gears and dive straight into the real market of crypto marketing, PR, and KOL strategy. So, what actually works, what's just hype, and what's most people get it wrong. So, joining us next is the head of PR from Paradex, sharing the industry's unfiltered truth from an insider's perspective. So, stay with us. We'll be right back here on RoxomTV.
Some call me Chicken Little, others Bubble Boy. I'm a bit changed, but sounds familiar, right? Let me tell you a hard truth. The S&P isn't rising, the dollar's falling. That's the trick, monopoly money. It's ice melting by the second. Your savings, your salary, your time. Worth less every second. Everyone's using the wrong measuring stick. Switch the denominator. Price the S&P into Bitcoin. Hard, fixed, unprintable. Suddenly your unstoppable index is collapsing. And while you cling to dollars, well, Wall Street already switched. Before, you needed 2 brokers.
Still getting my ninja bonus though, right?
Fuck. Plenty of spreadsheets. And my quant!
I hate this part.
I was right, and I'll be right again. If I were you, I'd thank me.
You know my name's Dave, right?
Welcome back, everyone, and thanks for sticking around with us on Roxom TV. We are now shifting gears into one of the most misunderstood parts of the industry. So, crypto marketing, PR, and KOL strategies. What actually works behind the scenes? How do narratives get built? And where do most projects get it completely wrong? Joining us for this discussion today is Josh, the head of PR at Paradex. He has been right in the middle of project launches, influencer campaigns, and market cycles. And today he's here to share his real, unfiltered truth on crypto marketing and KOL dynamics. So, Josh, great to have you.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me, Jemmy. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, so since this is your first time here on Roxom TV, why don't we start with a little bit of journey of you? So, how did you get into crypto, and basically, how do you secure a role at Paradex?
Yeah, so I would say I got into crypto passively back in 2018, just as a passive participant. But as time went on, and as I was playing football and studying, the gear started to shift a little bit closer to 2021 bull run. I'm like, hold on, this needs a little bit more of my attention. So I was playing football up until 2021. I got injured. I had an ankle injury. And during my recovery time, I had more time to be online and to be exploring crypto. And that's when I actually first came across Olympus DAO. A lot of the OG DeFi people probably know a lot about Olympus DAO and the crazy times that was around that. And that's when I really started locking in with the business side of crypto. And then I started doing content. I was actually on the Coinsider YouTube channel. And through that, I learned a lot about just KOL strategy. I was managing deals for the channel, and I started managing deals for multiple crypto YouTube channels and KOLs as well, just matching them up with brands that was a good fit. And through that, I was able to learn a lot, and things just really snowballed from there until now I am the PR lead over at Paradex. So I appreciate that.
Yeah, so tell me a little bit more about Paradex. Basically, what is the project about? What do you guys do?
Yeah, so Paradex at the moment or at a glance is a perpetuals exchange, a decentralized perpetuals exchange on chain. So pretty much leverage trading, all that good stuff you can do on chain, fully no KYC, no fees, no ADL, etc. But Paradex is actually much more than that. So they're actually building a DeFi super app and lots of just interesting developments further than just perpdexes and further than just DeFi are in the pipeline for Paradex. So I would say I would call it a DeFi super app. But right now, the main feature is the perps on chain.
So you're doing PR for Paradex, if I getting that part correctly.
Yeah, correct.
Yeah, so for doing crypto PR, I would say it's very difficult to not to overhype the project and at the same time maybe like lose credibility. So how do you balance? What's the secret for you?
Yeah, 100%. And, I was hoping you would ask that because, a big thing in crypto marketing is, especially when it comes to, KOLs and things that you see on X, there's a lot of noise and projects pay for KOLs and for shout outs and for tweets and stuff like that. But really that's borrowed attention, right? So really what sets the balance and sets the difference is projects that are able to turn sort of that borrowed attention into real gravity. Excuse me. So the difference between hype and the difference between substance, right? So the projects with real substance would actually have that stickiness following just like a quick shout out if they're actually building something that's innovative, if they're actually building something that solves a pain point for the users. So I would say finding that balance and really like backing projects that are building something that solves something for the users is where is what sets that apart, and having that messaging be really clear. So that's how I would sort of summarize that.
Yeah, I really appreciate you brought up that point. So, so far, the crypto projects that I've been seeing, they happen to like to use maybe airdrop campaign to sort of like buy users. So I wonder how this Paradox would balance maybe the short-term growth, short-term tactics like airdrops, or how do you balance with maybe long-term branding as well?
Yes, exactly. So honestly, similar to my previous point, so you have user incentives and things to bring people in the door, but what is actually going to keep them in the door, right? It's kind of like fireworks, right? I would say airdrop campaigns, very similar to even KOL campaigns. It's sort of this almost short-term uh, commercial ad, gets people in the door, but then what sets a project apart and the projects that go on to live on and the projects that just die is what the pain points that the project is actually solving and what the project is actually building. Now with Paradex in particular, right, as I mentioned, they're building a DeFi super app. It's more than just a Perpdex. It's more than just trying to compete with, the Hyperliquids of the world or the Lighters of the world. They actually want to go ahead and compete with like the PayPals of the world, the Robinhoods of the world, and just make a financial product that is easily usable for everyone and that makes things just a lot more accessible. Pretty much being able to trade any asset on chain, be able to borrow against any asset, and be that super app that has just that ultimate UX. So when the mission is something like that, and when the team, first of all, I say it all starts with the team, firstly. And once the team is building something like that, that's where I feel like okay, users who finally get in the door, whether it was through a KOL, whether it was through the airdrop campaign, it's like, okay, they're building something real here, and I want to stick around for the journey. So I would say that's what sets that apart and how we're beating just like the airdrop campaign. per se.
Yeah, got it. So the next question that I really want to get your take on, because you personally, you are an influencer, so you deal with influencers on a day-to-day basis as well. You work with different KOL marketing. So from an insider perspective, so from your own view, like how does influencer and KOL marketing really work in crypto? Because like so far, especially right now, KOL has a really bad reputation. So like what about from an insider view? Like maybe for Paradex, the project that you're building, like are they still utilizing or using the KOL campaign, or maybe right now not so much, you're pivoting away, try not to contact KOLs? What's the deal here?
Yes, another great question. And honestly, yeah, KOL campaigns, first of all, that name KOL, like you said, has like a taboo on it now. It's not what it used to be, right? There's a lot of sort of over promotion from KOLs and projects. You don't know if the KOL that you're listening to is actually having an authentic voice or if it's just paid. Now, the difference with it now and how we're using KOLs per se, I don't even like using that name KOL. It's kind of cringe at this point. But is long-term alignment. Long-term alignment. Now, one thing that you're starting to see more projects do, but something that Paradex is really going to hone in on and invest in on, is internal media. Now, homegrown media from the ground up, we're calling it Dime TV. So definitely stay tuned for that. So rather than just bankrolling KOLs like it used to be back in the day, you're actually going to see homegrown content from, I'll say, creators instead of KOLs that are aligned with the Paradex mission and even brought up from in-house to create our own mouthpiece for Paradex. And I feel like that's the future of where things are going, having our own media, having our own content, our own platform where we can actually go ahead and get our messaging across. So that's what we're doing different. It's kind of saturated and it's played out the old KOL method of just like paying for tweets and paying for videos here and there. You have short-lived hype and it's not really as effective as it once was. But this is how you build a long-term sustainable relationship with creators and have our own creators in-house as well. So that's how we're combating that.
Yeah, just to build on that, like since you work with like different projects and so many KOLs, I wonder from your own past experience, were there any campaign that focused only on KOL and they had like a massive success launch, or maybe it turns out to be a failure? Like speaking from your personal experience, what is the case here?
Um, like you saying KOL launches? Sorry.
Yeah, so like since you work with so many KOLs,
Right.
like from your personal experience, from what you have seen, like if projects only use KOL campaign, like
Yeah.
is it like a likelihood to fail,
Yeah.
or maybe it's still gonna be succeed in current market condition?
Well, see, yeah, as I mentioned earlier, that's rented attention, right? So it's a lot of projects only have hype as they pay the KOL, especially if there's something that is sort of run of the mill. You know, there's tons of lending and borrowing protocols out there. There's tons of just regular dexes out there. There's tons of meme coins out there. And if their only volume is from paying KOLs, that's, in my opinion, an unsustainable model and will only last so long. So for me, let's say if I was just a user or if I was just a consumer, that's an immediate red flag. If the only time the token has motion or volume or pumps is whenever you see them, you know, spend hundreds of thousands on KOLs on X and YouTube. So the projects that have real substance are the ones that are going to outlast that and not need to always be doing that. Like projects, it's good to market overall. Any business should be marketing, but there are projects that are just KOL driven, and that's I would say a zero-sum game in my opinion, and it's not sustainable. So real substance is what's gonna move the needle there and keep people in.
Yes, I like that. And me and you, we know each other on a personal level. So the impression that I got from you is that you're very extroverted, like you're very
Thank you.
talkative. So when it comes to like succeeding in what you do, crypto PR or crypto BD, would you say like is it an advantage to be more extroverted, or you think maybe an introverted person will succeed in this field as well?
Yeah, definitely. It's important to be extroverted in the world of being a BD or in the world of, you know, being doing PR, doing marketing, because this is relationships. At the end of the day, it's still human beings behind the computer. At the end of the day, it's still real people. We can get so lost behind X and behind our keyboards, but at the end of the day, there's always a real person on the other sides of these projects that are doing marketing, that are doing PR. So it's very important to me to be able to connect with people, to be able to talk to people. We're out here at Consensus Hong Kong right now, Crypto Week. So just having those interpersonal skills is definitely something that served me well, and definitely something that goes a long way if you want to be successful in this game.
Yeah, since that you are going around to different side events to even the main event at Consensus, like after talking to multiple people, multiple different people, like having so many conversations. So what's the vibe you've been getting? Because like the macro is quite uncertain right now.
Yeah.
So are people concerned? Are they bearish? So far, what is the conversations like?
Yeah, the vibes overall, I say first of all, the vibes at the conference, you can definitely tell that like we're a little bit in the bear market, bear vibes. The main conference at least wasn't as packed as you normally see. Let's say if it was the bull market, then you can kind of just tell the overall energy is just a little bit lower overall. But also, it's an opportunity to see who the real builders are, the ones who are still showing up in the bear when things aren't super exciting. That's who to keep an eye on. To me, those are the projects and those are the people that are definitely going to outlast the bear market, and that when the bull market does come back around are going to be thriving. So it's an opportunity to sort of plant seeds, before things pop off, I would say. But yeah, overall, the vibes were still relatively good. So as I mentioned, these kinds of people that you still see showing up in the bear, that you still see, traveling to these events, overall, they're relatively locked in, I would say, with their projects. And you find a lot more like-minded people that aren't just here for the quick hype, that are actually here to build for the long term. So low-key, I think that's some alpha. And those are the people that you really want to connect with. Don't lose those Telegram contacts, keep those relationships alive, because when things do start to pop off, it's a good chance that you'll see them at the top. So that's my my bit of alpha there. So overall conference energy was low, but it's an opportunity to meet real builders.
That is a really good tip coming from a pro in crypto PR and
Appreciate
crypto
it.
BD. So, what is your own take for the rest of 2026? What is the general like outlook for Bitcoin price and adoption? Are you bullish or just like hanging on tight?
Yeah, I mean, this is not my first cycle, and I feel like a lot of the OGs, a lot of newcomers are definitely terrified, right? Don't be so jarred by the headlines. Obviously, the price is not where we want it to be right now, but this is all part of the game. This is actually nothing that we've never seen before, right? And this is actually nothing new when it comes to crypto. There's going to be heavy drawdowns. There's going to be bear markets. It's part of the game, but we're far from over. As far as the rest of the year, I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, right? Per se. But as far as, when in doubt, zoom out. Over any 5 to 10 year span, Bitcoin has always been one of the best, if not the best performing asset out there, and the rest of the market comes along to follow. So in my grand scope of things, in my long-term thesis, nothing's changed. We're going to continue to build as always. Will we pop off again this year? I don't have a crystal ball. I wouldn't be shocked if we do. And you always see the headlines going crazy. But as I mentioned, when in doubt, zoom out. Over any 5 to 10 year span, we're chilling, we're just fine. So that's my answer to that.
Yeah, I mean, long-term wise, for sure, in 5 years' time, we know Bitcoin gonna pass its previous all-time highs, 126K. We know in 5 years' time, we're gonna be okay.
Yeah.
But like, kind of want to go back to a conversation that we had previously when you're in Hong Kong, so months ago.
Okay.
Because like we talk about the 4-year cycle. You asked me this question if I am a believer of 4-year cycle. I told you I was. So far we had the exact top on 6th of October. Do you think like this is still the case? Like the classic 4-year cycle is still intact, or it's just like maybe it's a coincidence? It's slowly changing now that institutions are in.
Exactly. Now the game has changed for sure. We got institutions in. We have entire countries in that are buying Bitcoin and having them on the reserves. We're having entire companies built around buying Bitcoin, right? You have the treasury companies. Obviously, you have the OG Sailor and just a lot more big players in the game. You have the ETFs. You have all kinds of institutional capital and even international capital that's at play here. So I feel like the cycle as we know it is definitely not the same anymore. The game has changed. But again, that long-term thesis hasn't changed at all for me. I think the 4-year cycle is dead. But we're going to see a new interesting way of Bitcoin price performance. Definitely bullish. And I feel like the next real bull run is going to be like something we've never seen before, just because of the amount of firepower that's now in the market and in the game.
Wait, so were you disappointed when we saw like the top of only 126K? Because like, if you ask me on personal level, even I was a little bit surprised. Okay, I'm a strong believer when it comes to a 4-year cycle. So I thought the top will happen on exactly 6th of October. But the degree, like the growth that we had compared to the cycle bottom, I have to say I was quite disappointed that okay, we only got to 126K. Were you surprised, or basically it is what it is for Bitcoin?
I will say I was surprised. I did expect a little bit higher. I think I publicly said 180 to 200. Expected to see that before seeing this level of a drawdown. We don't know what's going to happen even over the next few weeks, months. We could see it pop right back up. Who knows? But yeah, I would say definitely that was below my target for sure. But again, my conviction is not shaken, right? Although that wasn't the top that we were all hoping for, the game plan hasn't changed, and the fundamentals, most importantly, haven't changed at all.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like Bitcoin is still one Bitcoin always equal one Bitcoin,
Right.
and so far it's playing out rather well despite the price action. So we're moving towards the end of the interview. So I want to ask you this final question.
Yeah.
So you, as a professional in the whole crypto PR scene, like, is there any advice you could give to people when they are initially trying to enter into crypto marketing or PR? Because it could be very intimidating, like knowing no one in the field. Like what is the advice you could tell people to get started?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it definitely could seem really daunting. You know, crypto is very, very broad, but number one thing is to show up every day and start off as a participant, right? That's how I feel like everyone started off. That's how I definitely started off. You know, participate in, pre-launch projects, be on X, be active in Discord, be active on these Telegram groups, and see what the messaging is, see where the attention is going in crypto. Because as they say, where the attention goes, the money flows, right? So look at what's trending in crypto, be a participant first, be a student of the game. And then you're going to know when that time is where it's like, okay, I can get involved, I can get behind this. Also, definitely show up to events and meet people. Right. I actually met Jemmy at, I believe it was Taipei Blockchain Week, and now we're here on a show together, and we share resources. So crypto, what I love about crypto as well is just the community. Community really helps one another. So definitely, once again, like, get involved in these communities, show up to these events, and just show up every day, and you'll find your motion. You'll find where you fit in the space. So that would be my advice.
Amazing, Josh. So, if our viewers want to get to know more of your market perspective, or maybe Paradex, where's the best way to reach out to you guys?
Yeah, 100%. Well, Paradex, we're on X as Paradex, and you can find me on X at GPT Joshua. Yeah, feel free to shoot me a DM. My DMs are open, at me, and yeah, happy to connect. Cheers.
All right, big thanks to Josh once again for joining us and sharing his real and behind the scenes insight on on the whole crypto marketing and PR dynamics. So that would wrap up our special Consensus Week edition here on RoxomTV in Hong Kong. So with Chinese New Year coming up, there will be no shows from the Hong Kong studio next week, but don't worry, there will be other great shows lined up with different hosts here on RoxomTV as well. So wishing everyone a happy Chinese New Year. Enjoy the holidays and have a great day. We'll see you very soon next week.